Who was the guy? I think you posted about it. Somebody did, but who was the guy who, basically he had to, in going to school, he had to be educated for 8 or 9 years in philosophy before they would even begin to allow him to do the work of theology and dealing with the scripture. There was some guy, and I think, I can't remember if he did it or he didn't do it, if he rejected it because...
It's not ringing a bell for me.
Okay, I saw something, but somebody posted the other day, maybe it was Owen Strand, or maybe it was, but somebody in your camp, who's been frustrated by some of the, the Thomist stuff that's been floating around, saying that, this is what so-and-so said when he dealt with this same principle in his day, when basically people, they wanted to sow and drench someone in philosophy before they'd ever even be allowed to deal with the actual scripture. That's Rome.
That's Rome. That's how Rome has done it for a long, long time. There's no question about it. And so people who've come out of that, they're like, why are people even fascinated with this stuff? But it happens every few generations.
Well, but that's my question to you. You've been around long enough. Because what I've noticed, all right, I haven't been around the block as long as you have, but in my little bit of ministry that I've done so far, I've realized that there's the thing that people are doing, and then there's the reason. And the reason can sometimes be very different. And we have to be careful with that. So this is speculation. We can't impute motives and those kinds of things. God sees the heart. Man looks at the outward appearance. We can only judge that which is external, witnessable, and the whole 9 yards. So this is speculation. It's not an accusation. But I've just noticed that guys will be doing one thing, right? We saw this over the last 5, 6, 7 years with all the critical race theory and intersectionality, like where we didn't know at first, like, what are these guys that we used to agree with? What are they doing? I hear what they're saying, but it seems like there's something else that they're working toward. And then, 2020 and 2021, and we're like, oh, that's what you were doing. You're a Marxist. Okay, all right, I get it now. So I guess my question is, what if, and again, speculation, we're not making any accusations, but what's your guess? What do you think they're doing?
The best up until the past 48 hours, the best spin I could put on it is you have very, very scholastically minded individuals who pretty much live in the 16th and 17th centuries, wanting to resource the sources that were utilized in the formation of the London Baptist Confession. That's the nicest way to put it, okay? And that's a noble, laudable goal in one sense, even though even the Presbyterians have come to recognize that you have to allow for some latitude of interpretation of the Westminster Standards, and they don't require you to read the voluminous writings of every single person who attended the Westminster Confession or the Westminster Convocation, and they allow for some freedom there. It seems like we're going the opposite direction amongst Reformed Baptists. You saw what happened with the ARBCA thing. You saw what happened with the immutability stuff. Right. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't get into it.
Explain with the ARBCA. Well, first, what does that stand for our listeners? Because you're technical.
Association of Reformed Baptist Churches of America.
It's James Monahan, it's Dolezal, it's those guys, right?
Yes. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know what the state of ARBCA is right now, because
I don't know.
There were problems with something that happened up here in Prescott, Arizona, and lots of churches leaving. But this issue was a number of years ago in regards to immutability. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get into it at the time. The Reformed Baptist Church I was in was not an ARBCA church. We supported a lot of ARBCA projects, but we weren't a part of ARBCA itself. But make a long story short, it was about immutability. And when I read the two sides, I didn't feel like you could slide an envelope between the two of them, but they split over it. And, you're talking, 30% of an organization going another direction. And it's like, don't you think maybe there might have been a way to, not have that happen? But that attitude of an extremely strict interpretation of the confession, mm-hmm. and a strict confessionalism hasn't gone away. And I think that fed into the Dolezal simplicity stuff, and now off into inseparable operations. And once you get out into that area of speculative theology about, well, what does God think of himself?
Right.
At that point, you really need to the light of Scripture isn't going to be enough. You need to come up with some new lights. And some of us are going, wait a minute, time out. This is not what we were focused upon and emphasizing only a number of years ago. And I'm starting to see things about tradition and the authority of tradition and the development of tradition over time. And listening to the Mortification of Spin program that was just put out, there was a tremendous amount of discussion of tradition. And again, they were talking about what we would consider to be good tradition, the Chalcedonian definition, the Nicene definition, and things like that. But it really is, we now are having conversations amongst Reformed Baptists about what makes Nicaea true. So in other words, I've seen Baptists saying that to truly interpret Scripture, you need to do so from the lens of the Nicene dogmas. How did you get the Nicene dogmas? What's their foundation?
Right.
And if you say that Scripture has to be interpreted in light of the Nicene dogmas,
well, then that becomes that's an authority.
The Nicene dogmas have their existence
because of Scripture.
As truth because of Scripture.
Right. And what you're doing, you apply it to apologetics, and now we have the evidential or classical. What you're doing is you're taking anything and everything and making it Scripture subordinate to that this is the true authority. That sounds so Catholic, right? It's like, well, it's the church that gave birth to the Bible, so how can we say Sola Scriptura, and it just doesn't sound like Sola Scriptura, which I thought was like one of the hallmarks of what it meant to be Reformed. And that's what everybody was talking about for years and years and years. I remember watching, whether it be G3, whether it be this, and they still are, but it was just Sola Scriptura. And now it seems like, I don't know, it's weird to see it from that camp.
But not too many people had to defend Sola Scriptura against the best that the other side has to offer.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
That's where I have just honestly been able to say, guys, this is stuff I've been dealing with for decades. And my critics have not engaged Roman Catholic apologists on these subjects. They're not familiar with Roman Catholic writings on these subjects, like Eve Congar and stuff like that. And so I can forgive them for not seeing that they are making arguments that once they or their students run into sharp Roman Catholic apologists, they're going to be in deep trouble. And initially, when I first started seeing this stuff, I was privately going to some of these guys going, whoa, hey, guys, I'm really concerned because, I have sadly had to deal with so many people who swam the Tiber, went to Constantinople, journeyed to Canterbury, whatever. They've left the Reformed Baptist camp for liturgical grounds someplace else. And very frequently, the whole foundation has been an issue of authority. And it's a sad thing to have to talk to those folks. But I've been there, I've done that, I've seen it. And most of these guys have never seen that.
Big news, really big news. Our next Right Response Conference is in the works. We've got a number of things already lined up and organized. This is what we got so far. The whole conference, 3 days long, on postmillennialism and theonomy. And the speakers, Dr. James White, Dr. Joseph Boot, Gary DeMar, and of course yours truly, Pastor Joel Webbon. We've got a great lineup. We've got great topics. If you want to find out dates and location and registration and anything else, go and visit our website, rightresponseconference.com. rightresponseconference.com.